Alright, everything's turning on. Hello, hello, hello. All the live streams. It's crazy what's possible nowadays.
You are, in fact, live.
You can just go live on everything.
All the things.
Crazy.
All the things.
All the live activity.
Life's crazy. Hello, hello. Hello, people. Hello, world.
Hi.
Hello, world.
Hello, world.
I
Hello.
love making that program 20 times in college.
All right, let's do a little house tour here, actually, before we get too far into it. Do I have just the camera? I do, but I gotta get this going. There we go. All right, I'm gonna show you my little house here, okay? All right, here we go. All right, hi, how's it going?
Twitch is just showing you. Oh, there it is. There you are.
It says sending data though. Is it actually live on Twitch?
Kind of. It's just your face right now.
It's my face? You can see me on
Yeah.
Twitch?
It's face cam. Yeah.
Weird, because it says sending data like it's not even. Anyway. Okay. Hi. How's it going? Welcome to the bachelor pad. It's an unfinished basement. You know, it's got. Oh wait, I gotta turn this thing. Starting to get stuff set up. You know, here. There's carpet ball in the back there. I got the lights, but they're not like fully set up. We got these ones set up though. I still gotta get some other things going, but you know. Anyway, for the most part though, it's starting to get pretty set up. So I like it. It's a little weird that it's no carpets, but I've put down some rugs, and once we swept up most of the glass, I haven't been stepping on it as much, so that's been good. And spiders are still a thing, but
Yeah.
for the most part, we are getting through it. So I like it. Anyway.
Likes it.
Might want to check Discord audio because I'm not hearing myself or Stratus come through.
Oh, your thing's it's pretty high
There,
for
but
me.
It's a lot quieter.
Quieter? Oh, I might have to turn you up. I might just have to turn you up in Discord, just right up here. Turn this up. All right, try something now.
Okay.
Not sure if that's enough. Hello.
Yeah, I think that's good now.
Hear that? What's up, Jonah? You want to say something?
Yeah, I'm here.
I want to make sure I've got you at a good volume for the streams.
Whoa, that was weird. I just heard Jate like 3 seconds after he said something.
That
Oh,
echo,
and now
though.
myself.
I love the space. Sorry about Mixer. Yeah.
Yeah, rip
Yeah.
Mixer.
Yeah, it's a big sad. We're a big sad about that. Mixer was my platform of choice, and honestly, I've streamed there for a long time now, and had a lot of friends there, and I'm just, yeah, I'm pretty sad. But I mean, Twitch is really not that bad. I'm sure there's things that in the long run I'll like about it more than I liked about Mixer, but I just really wasn't missing Twitch, honestly. I really liked Mixer. I enjoyed the speed of it. I enjoyed the people. So I'm sure I'm gonna love Twitch, hopefully. But anyway, yeah, let's get into what we're actually doing here. So I'm gonna transition.
No, you.
Bah. So here we go.
Transition.
Oh wow, it kind of worked, but it also kind of didn't. Because now you shifted up there, and I have to.
Now you can see.
Yeah, I got it kind of in the wrong spot. Actually, and Jenna, are you activating your cam? Do you have cam?
I do.
Matt, look, you're a cool
Oh.
Pokemon. You don't have to activate the camera if you don't want to. I'm just getting everything set up. Okay, well, I guess that one's Jonah. Yeah, just gotta tick that one over, huh? That one's yours now. You get that box. I'll make a new one here.
Box.
It's mine.
Add a window capture for an existing window, which I named. Silly, I should probably rename that. Oh, because it's it's used for a lot now, more than just for Zilly. And cut that. You can't see what I'm doing. That's a good thing. It's because I'm fixing, pushing buttons around. All right, you know, I just click streamer things. Yeah.
This will probably be where I have to head out, unfortunately. Just as
Yeah, I know.
But it was good to stop by and say hello and catch up and stuff.
Yeah.
Fellas.
Thank you. Thanks for stopping by. Maybe next time. I don't know. I know you've got schedule's
Like
kind of weird.
6 weeks.
We'll figure it out. We'll do these more than just this day, and then we'll figure out a time that works for the. Yep.
Alright, take care, fellas.
See.
Bye.
Jonah, for a second I saw your camera live, and then now I do not. So.
I turned it off.
Okay. Do you want me to? Should I not put your camera on here? I realize this is
Yeah,
shifted.
I was just
Hmm?
eating some Oreos. I didn't
I
think everyone
keep
wanted to see
moving.
me eating Oreos.
I'm fine with seeing you eat Oreos. I just need to. I'm setting it up on
Okay.
the stream so it keeps. Want to make sure I have it.
Cool.
Oh. When it turns off and on, it like. Yeah, like
Just messing with you, that Jade.
there it is. Okay, sweet. And then I'll. Now I gotta cut this one down here.
Great. It's working so well.
There.
Absolutely no trial and error involved.
Yeah.
Funny look.
It's
Funny
worth
seeing the
being
delay.
first time every time.
Yeah. Wait, this is also not right. Something is shifted here. It's the little guys here should be up. Oh wait, they should be here.
Now
Yeah.
I am the top layer.
Yeah, it kind of keeps just shifting things around. I don't know. I don't know who to blame on this. I'll probably just take the blame. That's fine. It'll be my fault that everything's shifted in a weird way. There. I think that's right. I mean,
That looks fine.
you're dancing in front of my face. You can't get out of the way there. Sweet. I think that worked. Except for the chat at the top is kind of here. Wait a minute. Thanks for testing this out for me, guys. Everybody that's
You're welcome.
putting words and for you guys and saying things. I'm gonna move this down a little bit so we can actually see what
Nope, too far.
Matt said. I should just move this here somewhere. Do. I'm right there. Think. Okay, perfect. I'm gonna test some more. Hey, perfect. Oh wait, why are you in front of? down.
Top to bottom, or not top to bottom, bottom
There.
to top. It's like normal.
Yeah,
Twitch.
I fixed it. I just didn't hit transition. Okay. All that out of the way. Host and play. Which one was my character for this game? Love? I think it was Love.
Yeah, I think it was Love Jade.
Oh wait, no, that one has
Yeah.
0 extra HP. That's not it. Must just be Jade.
I think it might have just been Jade.
I don't know. It's been too long since I played.
Gotta be Jade with this skull thing and blue hair. Or did
Yeah,
I?
you did have blue hair.
Okay.
Ugh, my fan is flipping the pages.
And the thing was,
Yeah, there we go.
dude, there's like 2 love clans. Oh wait. Oh, there we go. Perfect. It's this one. Whoa. Multiplayer disabled. No, enabled.
Why is my Steam not connecting? What's going on?
Server password.
But yeah, it was.
Fish poop.
Always.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right, sweet. Just want to make sure. Oh, it's been too long. It's been too long. It's been too long since I've been like able to just sit down and do what we're. What am I looking at? How do I not look at it anymore? There's just numbers on my
Oh, wow.
screen. How do I get rid of those?
Debug.
Oh, wow. How did I guess the right key? Okay. That was weird. F11, if you ever don't want
You're
that
not
to happen.
online, Jade.
What?
You're not online on Steam.
So where's my mouse is gone.
We're having.
Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and close. Oh, okay. I'm just gonna go ahead and close it and reopen it. Cause it's being a little weird. Not live on Steam. Let me see. How do I keep going offline on Steam?
I've noticed it's been kicking me off every once in a while too.
When I hit the Steam thing, it says click this to go offline. To restart and offline. No, I'm alright. No. Reverse that. Alright, open chat. Sign
The
in.
friends list can go offline.
Sign me in.
Oh,
What are you
I'm
doing?
dancing in
Alright,
front of
there we go.
myself.
Alright, I'm live now. Or I'm online now.
Oh, I'm running away from myself.
Sorry, 1 second. Terraria just stopped responding. Ah, boy. Sorry, have I mentioned a couple times now that I need a new computer? Cause I do.
Yeah, I feel that pain. I keep having. Okay, so I have this weird startup issue with my computer right now where it doesn't always happen. I'd say it's maybe like 50-60% of the time. When I first start it in the morning or afternoon or whenever, I can't drag tabs in Chrome. I can't highlight text in Discord. And there's
Okay.
like a couple other weird buggy things like that. But if I restart it, it's fine.
That's weird.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, it makes
no
sense to
idea
me.
what that's
Totally.
about. But it happens and it bothers me.
Okay, alright. Join, host and play. This is this one. This one. Friends, friends, friends. Start. Perfect.
No you.
No, you.
No you.
Reverse Uno.
I don't have a comeback for that one.
Okay, see if it'll let you join now.
Yeah, on server.
It's a little choppy for me, but it's probably fine.
Hey.
A little choppy. Hopefully it's gonna work after the. Hi. It's gonna work.
When'd you get the boomerang?
I found it. Yeah, I've got
It's been
wooden
like,
yo-yo.
what, 3 weeks since I played this?
It's been a long time. Yep.
Yep.
Yikes.
I'm a little worried by how choppy it is right now. Let me just check and see what's going on. This is a game that works on iPad. I'd like to remind everybody that my computer can't play the game that works on iPad without being
I mean,
choppy.
you are streaming at the moment.
I know, but it's still just like For real. I
You
mean,
just have like a.
okay, I'll just close
window.
these.
What's running in the red there?
Oh wow, yeah.
OBS and Discord and Terraria.
Oh.
Oof.
How is it GPU? Wait. How is 70% of my GPU being taken up by OBS?
That doesn't make much sense because OBS doesn't actually use that much.
I don't know. Whatever. It's gonna be fine. I'm gonna live. Except for that I don't have my oh shoot. Where'd it go? I had a thing.
You always do this.
I had a thing for
hideout.
oh yeah. Yeah, the little hideout on this side. I had a thing specifically for the little hearts. It's gone. My grappling hook is gone.
Oh, rip.
Or maybe I didn't have one? Did I not have one? I had one.
Yeah, you definitely had one.
Guess I gotta make a new one. Also, it's really choppy. Sorry, I got no frames. I got no frames to hold me down.
It looks like you have 25 of them.
Yep, 25. That's all I getting. I think I'm like streaming in 60 and I have 25 frames in game. This makes sense. This makes sense. Anyway, all right.
Not about the visible frames. It's about input lag.
Yeah,
What I learned from pro gamers.
pro gaming.
Mhm.
So, how's your guys this week?
Pretty okay.
Long.
Long?
I'm slowly deleting all of my old Facebook posts and eventually Facebook entirely. I'm just like backing all of this stuff up because some of it's actually useful for remembering. It's like, oh, that's right.
That
was
Piper?
a thing that I did.
Yeah. All right,
Well,
deleting
for
Facebook. Why?
It is a huge time killer for me. Because I don't really spend a lot of time like browsing it or like looking at what other people do. In fact, I unfollowed pretty much everyone like 2 months ago. Actually, might have been sooner than that. But I really committed to it a few months ago. And I would just like post stuff there. Just take like 2 hours to write bits of my story and just go, yeah, let's put this on Facebook, why not? And then I just kind of sit there and see if anyone interacted with it. I'm like, there are so many better ways to do this. Like, so many better ways. And as I've been going through those old posts and like seeing the process of how I ended up spending as much time on there as I do, I really should have just ducked out years ago.
Huh. Interesting.
There's absolutely no reason for me to have this. So, well, especially
Yeah.
now that Discord is like my community center, like where
Right.
I actually have my friends.
Yeah, that's true.
Like Facebook is for like extended family and stuff, but I never talk to them except at various events.
Morning, Jordan.
So-
Hey, morning, Jordan. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, I guess I like got to a stage where I didn't, like I used to do that more on Facebook, where like I used to just scroll for hours, you know, like I would just look at people's timeline, like I'd just go through over and over again through people's timelines and try to see, you know, if there was something I missed and I didn't want to be left out of anything and blah blah. And it's like all that stuff just kind of stopped for me. Like I don't do that anymore. And honestly, I feel kind of bad because when I do check Facebook, I usually only see whatever's the top post, and that's it. Because I'll just like open it for a little bit and look and be like, oh, cool, like, alright, and then and then I go to what I meant to do, which was go to my page to like post whatever little random thing is happening. And I actually,
it was an outlet for random little thoughts.
yeah,
There's
I don't
there's
know.
so many better places to do that.
Yeah, and that's true. There are better places to do it. I guess I just see it like, some people are like, they don't see it that way. It's more like, oh, like Facebook was like my drug. I could only, whereas I basically just see it like another social media thing. I feel bad that there's a lot of people that I don't get to see every week anymore, because I've moved away and stuff. And so it's like, I want a little thing to post what happened over the last week, and even just to post about, so that I have a list for the future. Sometimes I'll go back and look and see like what happened when, and I like the 1 year ago posts. You can see like, oh,
nice.
that happened a year ago. Oh wow, it's been a year. Crazy. I don't know. I don't mind that stuff, but I can totally respect like when people,
and part of it,
delete their Facebook.
With quarantine is like I've realized so like I love like all you guys and stuff, and Discord community and whatnot, because it has kind of a different feel. But for people who I can actually I can just see in person, I kind of hate social media. I'm like, no, like I can interact with you IRL. Like I don't want this excuse standing in the way of that. Yeah. And
I'm just the reverse. Like, I'm so the opposite.
I need to see y'all in person.
Yeah. And I totally get that. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. I'm the opposite, but only because it's like I have a few people that I can see in person, and even before I moved, it's just so difficult to meet with all the people I want to meet with in a day.
Oh yeah. In
person, and if I'm kind of the reverse. If I set that standard where it's like, I almost felt bad meeting with people in person, because it was like that meant that there was 4 people online that I couldn't meet with because I had to dedicate. It's not like I'm gonna meet with somebody for 20 minutes in person, so it's like I have to dedicate most of a night to that one person. I don't usually set up 3 meetings in a day when I'm meeting with one person, or when I'm meeting with somebody in person. So it feels very, but I can totally do that online. I could totally like, hey, sorry, like I have another meeting. Like I already told somebody else I was gonna meet with them, so I need to go real quick. And some people I know are really, really good at that. Like some people I know, that's totally a thing they can do, is meet with somebody for a short period of time. I can't do it though. For me, like if I'm meeting with you, if I say like we're hanging out, then like that's the only thing I'm doing that night. I don't know. Probably just me. I think those are just, I think there are differences in what the standard is too, which is actually really important to set, I think, in a relationship. Like, and when I say in a relationship, most people think like, dating relationship. I just mean in general. I think it's good to set some standard and be like, hey, just so you know, I work on this day and this day, and I don't have a ton of time here, and I can do this time. I can't do this time. So, because otherwise it turns into, why I don't know. Like everybody has slightly different expectations, and that's really hard. I think that's a.
Why can I not get my crafting?
I actually don't even know where you are, Zilly.
Okay, so wait.
Let me wait. Join blue team.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you're 2,000 feet from us.
Yeah, I'm back at the home base.
Okay, maybe that's. I should probably go to home base so we can go back to the thing.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. Never mind, it's not showing me things I don't have access to. Gotcha.
Anyway, sorry, that's Zilly. We got off on a thing because we can and whatever. Also, speaking of setting the standard, what's your guys' time like tonight? Are you heavy on time? Like we got to be out?
I'd like to be out by like 11:30ish, but
Okay.
otherwise I'm good.
Jonah,
I don't really have a time.
time? Okay.
Don't exactly have a life right now.
Yeah, and I'm willing to, kind
Oh,
of duck
shoot.
out early and let y'all keep going.
Yeah. No worries. That's. I mean, what time is it there for you now? That's
8, 10 after 8.
Yeah. Okay. We can probably.
Yeah, like
we
3
can
hours.
Probably hit it. Yeah. We can probably
Oh,
hit
yeah,
it.
it's only 6
in that.
o'clock here.
We're trying not to go.
We're trying not to. We'll do it. We got it. No problems. We just got to get through Romans 11. And it's,
Oh my.
about a page and a half. Not too
Yeah,
bad.
it's not actually too big, but I mean, this is the thing with Romans, though. Is like
I know.
it's not long.
It's going to be, it's
It's
filled though.
Very, very big.
Yeah. He's really got a lot to say. He just does it in one breath. Yeah. I don't want that thing coming. All right, so nice. John, how was your week?
Oh, like I said, it's pretty long. Pretty boring.
What made it long?
Well, I don't have a job yet, although I finally had the final interview booked for Thursday. So that's
Hey,
nice.
congrats! Final
It
interview.
just happened like a couple hours ago, so like. sweet.
Hey. That's something we've been praying about for a while.
Yeah.
Getting a job. So yeah, that'd be great.
Mhm.
Look.
Well, because they've just been waiting to get all my references back before they do the final interview.
Right. Makes sense.
So it's been a long time just waiting.
I feel you. Whoa. All right. Well, we can pray for that final interview. Actually, before we get going, just so we can get that out of the way. I want to throw it out there though to anybody that's in chat. Looks like Facebook, Twitch, Piper Jordan. If you guys are here, Matthew, anybody else. If you guys have any prayer requests, we're gonna pray real quick. Just let us know so we can be praying for you. And I'll even make you a deal. You don't even have to pray. We'll do it for you. It's a pretty. Are you gonna get a deal like that? I don't know. Give you a second to think about it if you have anything. I really want to know. Like, I mean, it's kind of weird time, obviously, with COVID stuff. So, in general, we can pray about those things. But if anybody has something specific, I want to be praying for you guys.
For sure.
But before we pray, and while people in chat are thinking if there's anything they've got for us to pray about, let's read. Ooh, actually, wait, that was pretty good. All right, this is an accident, but it's I think great. I just was flipping around, and speaking of Jonah, Jonah 2 popped open here, so let's read a little bit of Jonah just to get in the right mindset before we get going. So Jonah 2 says, I called out to the Lord in out of my distress, and he answered me. Out of the belly of Sheol I cried, and you heard my voice. For you cast me into the deep, into the heart of the seas, and the floods surrounded me, all your waves and your billows passed over me. Then I said, I am driven away from your sight, yet I shall again look upon your holy temple. The waters closed in over me to take my life. The deep surrounded me. Weeds were wrapped about my head. At the roots of the mountains, I went down to the land. Those bars closed upon me forever. Yet you brought me up, my life from the pit. O Lord my God, when my life was fading away, I remembered the Lord, and my prayer came to you, into your holy temple. Those who paid regard to vain idols forsake their hope and steadfast love, but I, with the voice of thanksgiving, will sacrifice to you. What I have vowed, I will pay. Salvation belongs to the Lord. So, I mean, shoot, like, it's a very applicable verse just because it's so like the feelings are there, you know. It's not a literal thing, but the feeling of being just dragged into the ground, you know. It's like death is all around me and I'm just slowly sinking into my grave, you know. And yet God hears us. Like, he hears that's the thought and that's how we feel, and that he pulls us up from that, that he gives us life, and more than just physical life, but emotional healing. And yeah, I really like that. I think it's just super applicable. So I don't know, anybody in chat, before we pray, this is the last chance. I'm never gonna get a chance to pray for you again if you don't right now have a chance for me to pray for you. Otherwise, I don't know what I'd do. I'd have to pray at like the end again or something, you know. So yeah, okay, that'd be impossible. I could never do that. Jordan says, I decided to go to Chinese language school here in Taiwan. Wow, nice. I know you were talking about that earlier. So pray that the application process goes well. Pray find a way to financially support yourself. Yep, I know that's what with the school stuff, ending the teaching job there in Taiwan, and you know, needing a permit to continue working in Taiwan, and yeah, I think it's really, you know, I think it's really cool, your heart for why even being in Taiwan, and like you're saying, the reasons kind of felt like it's changed a lot. Oh, snagged. So no, that's great. Going to Chinese language school would be crazy. And from my friends, I've heard that Chinese is one of those languages that it feels like you almost need to go to school to learn, because it's just so complicated. And so yeah, definitely pray for that, and we'll pray for Jonah and his work situation. All right, cool. Let's go to God. Dear Heavenly Father, God, first of all, I want to pray for Jonah. You know, we've been praying for a job for him for a while now. God, something that you have placed in front of him, something that is why he's created. You know, there's a purpose for his life, and we believe that. We believe what you say in Ephesians 2:10, that he is your workmanship, and he's created for good works you prepared in advance. And so, God, I pray that there's a job that you have prepared in advance for him, that there's something that he can do that will continue to move him in the direction of God, either with his work or with just his time in general. And we thank you, God, that is the promise that you give us. And we also pray that this final interview will go well, that if this is the job that you want for him right now, God, that he'll get it, and that you would just put that forward. So we bring this to you and we release it. It's not something that you know, we're praying that Jonah won't be worrying about, won't be anxious about, because if it's something that you want for him, God, then we know that he's already done all the diligence and the work to get this interview, and that he's going to knock it out of the park. So pray for that. And then also, God, We don't pray for Jordan, that as he's in an in-between, in a weird time with COVID and everything. Now he's not working in the school, and he's going to go to Chinese classes. And financially, God, that's a lot to deal with all at once. And so the same thing, God, pray for Jordan, that his heart is in the right place with why he's in Taiwan. He wants to see change in people there. And so, God, I just pray that you would bless that you would give him financial support, but also he'd be able to get into the Chinese school, and that you would have his mind work so he'd be able to actually learn Chinese, and that he'd be able to use that to further your kingdom. And so, God, thank you for these prayers. Thank you for these people. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. So let's hop right in. We're in Romans 11. So we're moving right along. I don't know. There's 3 owls here. Somebody had a net. You could catch yourself a nice amount of owls. There are only 16 chapters in Romans. So Romans is quite a bit shorter than Acts. Not that much shorter. Okay. Whoops, sorry. I just murdered an owl. Nobody saw that. I don't know why that sounded so much louder than all the other sounds.
It sounds very loud.
It was very loud, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So we're pretty close. 11 out of 16. Not bad. We'll have to figure out something to do after Romans. But for now, does somebody want to read the first portion of Romans 11:1 starting, and then go until whenever the heck you feel like?
Sure.
Alright. Do it.
Romans 11, right?
Yeah.
I ask then, has God rejected his people? By no means, for I myself am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, a member of the tribe of Benjamin. God has not rejected his people whom he foreknew. Do you not know what the scripture says of Elijah, how he appeals to God against Israel? Lord, they have killed your prophets, they have demolished your altars, and I alone am left, and they seek my life. But what is God's reply to him? I have kept for myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to Baal. So too, at the present time there is a remnant chosen by grace. But if it is by grace, it is no longer on the basis of works, otherwise grace would no longer be grace. What then Israel failed to obtain what it was seeking, the elect obtained it, but the rest were hardened, as it is written. Probably a good place to stop to discuss.
Okay. So, I don't know. What does it mean?
I think it's more of an encouragement to the Israelite people that they haven't been forgotten or abandoned. Even though they're like, oh, but the Gentiles are getting everything. Well, why aren't we? Kind of.
What are the Gentiles
But-
getting?
Well, because remember, I think we were talking in the last chapter that that the Gentiles were man, I'm trying to, words are not coming to me right now.
You're good. Yeah.
Basically, yeah, he's saying that Israel would be jealous of them because they would accept what God is giving, which was grace and salvation, basically, and that they weren't. They were basically trying to do it on their own, but that they would be jealous. And then no, it's kind of saying it's like no, he hasn't forgotten. Like it's also available to them. It's just that those who there are those that they just won't. They refuse to accept it.
Because they've always thought it was available to them, right? It's just like,
And just them.
right, to just them. And so now he's saying it's also available to other people, but also still available to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. So I get, yeah, that makes sense. Anything else?
I mean, I think it's just kind of. I don't want to say rehashing because like everything in Romans is kind of unique to everything else in Romans, but it,
Sure.
it does kind of it readdresses the same ideas.
Yeah. Well, it's also one big letter when it was written, right?
Right.
So
Which
it
is
makes
kind of a
sense.
whole-
Has
Do you
one
get it? Do
idea
you get it? Do you get it?
focused.
Yeah, definitely has a do you
Didn't
get it?
when I said it this way. Let me try saying it this way. If that
Right.
doesn't work, then here's this other chapter where I go over it another way.
Right. Which, I mean, to be fair, if something's repeated multiple
yeah.
times in the Bible, then, you know, there's a reason that it's
Right.
probably important, you know, so.
Definitely.
And what, in one sentence, what is it that he's repeating over and over again? So far, at least.
It's based on faith and not works. Salvation is from God, not from man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
can't
that
get
it's
it on your
for
own.
everybody,
Right.
not just one group of people. Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is kind of like saying, get over yourselves. You're not the most. You're like, yes, I chose you as my people, but you're not the most important all the time.
Right. Yep. Yeah, I think that's pretty much what it feels like to me, at least, so far. So, demolish your altars. On the left, they seek my life. What's God's reply to them? Myself, 7,000 men who have. So, present time, there's a remnant chosen by grace. Yeah, I mean, this is like, this is kind of one of those. There's just a lot of, Christian-y things in here.
Mm-hmm.
Zilly, could you look this up in the message?
Yeah, give me just a second to get to a safe space.
Wait. Oh wait, you're done. Where did you go? I don't even know where
I'm
you
down
are.
I'm way over in the jungle to the west.
What? Okay. He's like, I don't know how to play, and then just like is in the jungle, the hardest place.
I'm just running around, you know.
I feel you. I'm gonna try to find where you're at so I can somewhat help you, but
Yeah. Message though. Let's pull this up.
yeah. Just because it's like, I mean,
God.
there's stuff like, people that 7,000 people vow their need to, to no idols, and Baal is mentioned, and it's like, okay, lot of things. I kind of want to know actually if there's something else.
in this diet.
Yeah.
All right, Romans 11 message. Does this mean then that God is so fed up with Israel that he'll have nothing more to do with them? Hardly. Remember that I, the one writing these things, am an Israelite, a descendant of Abraham, out of the tribe of Benjamin. You can't get much more Semitic than that. So we're not talking about repudiation. That is a big word for the message. God has been too long involved with Israel, has too much invested to simply wash his hands of them. Do you remember that time Elijah was agonizing over the same Israel and cried out in prayer, God, they murdered your prophets, they trashed your altars. I'm the only one left, and now they're after me. And do you remember God's answer? I still have 7,000 who haven't quit, 7,000 who are loyal to the finish. It's the same today. There's a fiercely loyal minority still. Not many, perhaps, but probably more than you think. They're holding on, not because of what they think they're going to get out of it, but because they're convinced of God's grace and purpose in choosing them. If they were only thinking of their own immediate self-interest, they would have left long ago.
All right. So yeah, I mean that's kind of a like I like it because we were able to get something out of it, and then I feel like that's got something else out of it, you know. And so it's very similar to what you're saying. That it's sort of like a Jonah that it's like yeah, like I'm not leaving you, you know. I'm so committed to you that I'm not gonna leave you just because you effed something up, you know. And at the same time, yeah, good.
That's the thing is when you look at something like, you know, books of Kings, you know, First, Second Kings, or Chronicles, First, Second Chronicles, and you see like just how bad some of Israel's bad was.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the evil that they did at that time. And it's still, God's still saying like, no, you know, I love you. You're my people.
Right.
And if you can do some of the things the kings of Israel did and still be loved by God, it's gonna be real hard. And I mean real hard to mess that up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, the I also really like the part the message is said, and I don't know which verse they were taking it from, but however they got to where they're saying that there's probably more faithful than you think. And that is sort of that's encouraging to me. It can feel a lot of times like, okay, like am I the only one thinking about these things, or is it just, you know?
oh yeah.
And the reality is that there are more, there's more people than I probably think that are thinking about these things, that are, yeah, what we're doing now, we're live streaming on a couple different platforms, and we're reading through the Bible, and we're playing video games, and that's just not very common. But at the same time, like, I was watching on Twitch, Chris Bennett was doing his thing. So it's a similar thing. He's maybe not playing video games, but he's doing a Bible study basically in a Twitch platform, and I think, you know, cool. Like I think it's cool to see that other people are thinking this way, and it's not just us. And I also appreciate that it's like, yeah, if they were doing it for their own sake, they would have just quit a long time ago. And I mean, I feel that too, right? Like, if the only reason to do what we're doing now was just for our own sake, there would be not really any reason to do it, because that's not, it's not like this is the easiest platform to go at or whatever, you know? So yeah, I don't know. It's all good stuff. A little different in the message. Probably threw some of that in there. Any other thoughts on these first few verses? Oh, that's just a straight death. That's just a pit with nothing but rocks at the
down
bottom.
the rock wall.
It's just, I don't have a thing for sliding. I don't have the boots. I think I did. I'm pretty sure this isn't my character. Oh well.
Yeah, little...
Looks a little different, yeah. That's alright. Okay, so that's the first section. You guys both read it, so I guess I'll read the next section. So I'll back up a little bit just so we have some premise up to what's happening here. So 7 says, this is Romans 11:7. So it says, "What then? Israel failed to obtain what it was seeking. The elect obtained it, but the rest were hardened. As it's written, God gave them a spirit of stupor. Super duper. God gave them a spirit of stupor, stupor eyes that would not see, and ears that would not hear. So that's explaining what they had there. So God gave them a spirit. Their eyes would not see, their ears would not hear, down to this very day. And David says, let their table become a snare and a trap, a stumbling block, a retribution for them. Let their eyes be darkened so that they cannot see, and bend their backs forever. Okay. Sounds a little crazy. So I ask, did they stumble? In order that they might fall? By no means. Rather, through their trespasses, salvation has come to the Gentiles, so as to make Israel jealous. Now, if their trespass means riches for the world, and if their failure means riches for Gentiles, how much more will their full inclusion mean? So, if the bad stuff they do are riches for the world, and their failure is riches for them, actually being riches in their failure, then how much more will their full inclusion mean in there? So he's kind of making a case for Israel to include them. Now I'm speaking to you, Gentiles. Inasmuch then as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry in order somehow to make my fellow Jews jealous, and thus save some of them. For if their rejection means the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance mean but life from the dead? If the dough offered its first fruits, if the dough offered as first fruits is holy, so is the whole lump. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. Okay. We'll pause it there. So, what does it mean? I'll be honest. There's a lot of there's a lot there, but there's a lot there that I'm like, I kind of get it, but I also just kind of don't. Like, I don't know. It seems like he was speaking very point blank for a while there, and then he kind of just went into a whole thing. Probably because he wasn't talking to the Gentiles. He was talking to the Israelites, so he's being very wordy, and that's, I feel like that's fine. But can we read that section in the message too? We might have to read this whole thing in message, just because I'm dumb and I don't get it always.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's put that up.
Oops, I didn't even go to that traveling merchant. Ow.
And then what happened? Well, when Israel tried to be right with God on her own, pursuing her own self-interest, she didn't succeed. The chosen ones of God were those who let God pursue his interest in them, and as a result received his stamp of legitimacy. The self-interest Israel became thick-skinned toward God. Moses and Isaiah both commented on this. Fed up with their quarrelsome, self-centered ways, God blurred their eyes and dulled their ears, shut them in on themselves in a hall of mirrors, and they're there to this day. David was upset about the same thing. I hope they get sick eating self-serving meals. I break a leg walking with their self-serving ways. I hope they go blind staring in their mirrors, get ulcers from playing with God. The next question is, are they down for the count? Are they out of this for good? And the answer is a clear-cut no. Ironically, when they walked out, they left the door open, and the outsiders walked in. But the next thing you know, Jews were starting to wonder if perhaps they had walked out on a good thing. Now, if their leaving triggered this worldwide coming of non-Jewish outsiders to God's kingdom, just imagine the effect of their coming back. What a homecoming. Let's see, how far did we read?
A little bit further.
But I don't want to go on about them. It's you, the outsiders, that I'm concerned with now. Because my personal assignment is focused on the so-called outsiders. I make as much of this as I can when I'm among my Israelite kin, the so-called insiders, hoping they'll realize what they're missing and want to get in on what God is doing. If their falling out initiated this worldwide coming together, their recovery is going to set off something even better: mass homecoming. If the first thing the Jews did, even though it was wrong for them, turned out for your good, just think what's going to happen when they get it right. Behind and underneath all this, there is a holy, God-planted, God-tended root. If the primary root of the tree is holy, there's bound to be some holy fruit. Some of the tree's branches were pruned, and new wild olive shoots were grafted in. Yet the fact that you are now fed by that rich and holy root gives you no cause to crow over the pruned branches. Remember, you aren't feeding the root is feeding you.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. So yeah. I feel like I understand a little bit better. But yeah, what's it saying? Did that help at all?
Yeah, I'm still just reading back over the DSV a bit to kind of let that sink in my head. I think it's interesting with some of the specific verbiage here. Verse 11, did they stumble in order that they might fall? I remember a few chapters back, there was a lot of talk on that, where Paul was saying that there was this stumbling block that was set for them, and kind of initiating that point. Now here he's, coming back to it, saying it again, but clarifying, quantifying. This isn't just that's the word I'm looking for. Almost died. Swarm bats came in. He's clarifying it. He's saying, harkening back to that same point, saying, all right, so we know that this wasn't just like some unaccounted for variable that, God knowingly allowed Israel to kind of wander, do its thing. But it wasn't for their harm or shortcoming or downfall. It serves a greater purpose in the long run. And that kind of thought is really encouraging, because there's a lot of times, especially in my own life, where I see areas where I've screwed something up or just gotten the wrong process,
right,
done the wrong thing, whatever. And here he's saying, just because you're messing up doesn't mean you're out of the game. Like,
right. Just because you're messing up doesn't mean you're a mess up.
Right. Like, even your mistakes can be used by God for good.
Right.
Even active rebellion can be used for good. But what it's saying is, God can use that. He can use anything, anyone. But how much greater is it when you team up? Like, when you work with God instead of fighting against him,
Right.
like, how much more would he be able to get out of you?
Right. Yep. It's true. Yeah, I mean that's it's a I think about ooh, okay. I think about Job. I mean, like Job comes
Yeah.
to mind, you know, that it's like if there wasn't like Job, the way that Joe handled it wasn't correct. Although even then it's like it's hard to want to say anything bad about Job, because it's like, well, if all that stuff happened to me, I feel like I would have a hard time doing any better than Job did. But you know, God was he decided, and he said like that the way you handled that is not the way that I wanted to. You know, you're being prideful, and he later on then we kind of see that where he was being prideful. We don't know the heart of it, and even though it looks kind of good the way he's handling it from the outside, to the point that even some people are like his wife saying, why are you still following God? Like, curse God and die. He's internally he's still feeling like he deserves better than what he gets, and he hasn't come to terms with his own sin. But for me, it's kind of like, okay, like that, if I didn't have a story like Job to look at the way that he handled it, you know, if the Bible had just been a story of people that all handled every situation exactly perfectly, then I would probably just be like, well, that's bull crap. Like, this is a bull crap book, you know, like nobody handles it this way. This is just a bunch of fake stuff, like from fake people. No one acts this way. And it's not like, that's not how the Bible reads. And it's not, even the people that are like David, that are people that are of God's heart are still do things that we look at and we're like, what the heck? David's awful. Like, that's an awful thing to do. And I think we have to, it makes us think a little bit, I guess, about like, but thank goodness that we have that story about David. I respect it more, because then now when I think about that, I do when I'm like, oh shoot, like I want to be like David. I want to have the faith that David had. But even for that, you know, God uses David even though he does wrong things, and the reason that he's a person after God's own heart is because of his faith. You know, he has very strong faith. David and Goliath, if you know the story of David and Goliath, that's the story, you know, that kind of faith. And David also did bad stuff. He had somebody killed basically so he could sleep with a woman. Okay, seems kind of bad. So how do you, when we read stuff like that, then for me, it's not looking at it and going like, wow, like God's standards are really low, you know? It's more like, wow, God's able to use somebody that's like that, and I'm like that, so hopefully God can use somebody like me. And so what are the things that are good in David that I need to be more like? You know, I need to have more faith. I need to. I have a hard time believing if God will give me financial support for the week. You know what I mean? And it's like David's like, yeah, I'll go stand before this guy that's like 3 times my size with a stone, even though he has full armor and I'm gonna not have anything. You know, it's like, dang. I don't think I have that kind of faith. So yeah, a lot of good stuff in this part. And Mark, 1 second, I'm about to die and I don't want to, so I will read your comment here in a second. Let me hop over here. All right. Yeah, Mark said Israel is God's chosen, and they have done wrong because they got off track knowing God intimately. God then used the Gentiles to show them that although they're not his chosen, they're still loved by God, and they got it right because they truly understand God's message without really knowing it. But the Israelites will always be his chosen. At the end, they will rule over all. Yeah, I agree. I think it's a like, you know, we read that in back in, I think it was 7, might have been 6.
It's a fun weapon.
Okay. Cost me.
Might have been back even further than that. I don't remember. There's a specific verse that I remembered was that it summarizes that in a sentence. But yeah, that's the whole of it. But you know, it's what does it mean that? What is the difference? You know, like what is the difference between Israel being God's chosen one and the Gentiles? And if the Israelites are God's chosen one, what does that mean? Like what is that the difference? Because the Israelites, they would see it like, yeah, we're the chosen ones, meaning we're the ones that go to heaven. Like we're the ones that that God loves enough to save, you know. So if they're God's chosen one, what does that mean now? And today, is that still a thing? And then where do we fit in that? You know, because we would fit more in line with the Gentiles than we would Israelites. So I think that's something that, you know, we have to think through. Because it seems like Paul's really hitting at saying, yeah, they understand it, and even Paul says, you guys aren't getting it, and so I'm now going to the Gentiles, and then now here he's kind of bringing it back around, saying, I'm not just leaving you in the dust. You know, it's not like God said you're not. I have a longer history with you guys. And so it's not like I'm not your God anymore. But if you're not going to have faith, and the Gentiles, with the very little information they have faith, well, okay, then where are we going to go? And today I feel the same way with Christians, you know? There's Christians that grew up, they grew up in a Christian home, going to church. They had parents who taught them the Bible, that, you know, go down the list, so on and so forth. And yet, you know, and yet they're sometimes the ones that they just kind of take it for granted. Like, yeah, you know, God loves me, and so I don't have to do anything about it. And whereas like somebody who's just baptized with very little information, and they're like, what do I need to do? Like, I mean, this is obviously not something I can just keep to myself. I can see a very similar situation today, where it's like, okay, yeah, like you're a Christian. You were born in a Christian home. You know the Bible. That's great, but that's not like, it doesn't say like read the Bible and then go to heaven. Like those aren't like, you know what I mean? Like you have faith, and then that faith leads you to do stuff about it, and not just have faith. You know, even the demons have faith. They believe that God exists, but if they don't do anything about it, you know, then you're no different than demons. So I think it is a
yeah, I love that verse. Like, it's such a like, ooh.
Yeah.
Like,
ooh,
yeah. Like, ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. It is an oof. Because I've thought about that. I've been like, you know, in my prayers sometimes, I've put faith together with believing. And that's such a very small, faith is a very small part of believing. Because, or believing is a very small part of faith.
Yeah.
Because of that, like the demons believe that God exists. And so some people I think confuse that, where they're like, well, I was born I was born and my parents raised me as a Christian, and so I mean I believe that God exists, and so whatever. And it's like, well, that's great, but faith is, do you believe that God's plan for your week is going to be better than what you have planned for your week? Do you believe that what your job situation is would be better if you actually truly prayed, God, give me the job that you want for me and not the job that I want for me? Like if you believe those things, that's faith, and that, I think that's obviously, I hope people like get that that's much different than just I believe that God exists, yeah. Anyway, a little bit of a tangent. It's okay.
But
We allowed for some of those.
yeah, we still have 2 hours.
Okay. We don't have to take up 2 hours, but we have
We
it.
don't have to. We have.
We have 2 hours plus eternity.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else in that section? We already read. What was the thing about the bread? The piece part of it, the loaf. The whole thing
if
is.
the dough offered as first fruits is holy, so is
Mhm.
the whole lump, and if the root is holy, so are the branches.
Yeah, could you go through that like piece by piece? Like what is a first fruit? Dough. What the heck are they talking about?
So I'm probably a little fuzzy on some of this. Old Testament isn't.
Me too.
really
I'm
my,
legitimately
strong
asking.
suit,
Like,
but
feel free to Google it if you don't know. I just want to make sure I understand it before I. Yeah.
basically, first fruits was a thing with the sacrificial system where it's kind of like tithing, where you take a percentage, a part of your resources, your sort of income, so to speak, and whatever is like first, whatever's best,
I joined you.
you give a part of that to God, or to the church, or the temple, or whatever it was at each given time. And the idea was that it was just your best and your kind of most desirable you gave.
Right.
And it's kind of saying like, what's the heart behind that? Why are you giving your best? Why aren't you just giving your whatever, your 10% just from the dumpster bin or whatever? Like, why does it have to be your best? Why does it have to be your full?
Right. Yeah, the first fruits, your the not the like bruised fruit, like your the best of the first harvest, like the and even then you're not like waiting to see if you can make it fruit, not like, oh, I'll wait till I sell everything, and then if I have enough money, then I can, it's like, it kind of goes back to the faith thing, right? Like are you trusting God? It doesn't really take any trust to be like, well, I did this and I have extra, and so here, you can have my extras, for me, it's like, okay, I don't know if the other fruit will be good or not. I don't know if yeah, and so like you said with tithing, it's kind of similar, I guess, is when we say we're giving our first fruit, it's like I'm giving my first 10%, I'm giving my first whatever it is that I'm giving. And so I think for me that's kind of like that can be time. I do think financial is a very it's a thing. It's I don't think it's good to not see it that way. But at the same time, if we're talking about the first, how do you give your first 10% of your time? Okay, if that's how you want to look at it, then time is money.
That's
So
really good with tithing. Yeah, it's
Mhm.
like what resources do you have? Because the
Right.
thing is, a lot of us look at even just the word resource, and we almost all just instantly think money,
right.
and that's really not a fair assessment.
Mm-hmm.
There are vastly more resources. You know, there are social resources, like the people you know,
Mhm.
the people you have time invested in, the people who, you know, trust your opinion, who,
Right.
you know, and people whose opinions you trust. Like, these are resources. Time is a resource. The place that you live is a resource. The car you have, if you even have one, like,
Right.
you know, your computer, like, these are
Mhm.
resources.
Right.
And so it's a good idea to sort of think about, like, what are those first fruits,
Mm-hmm.
and how do you kind of make those holy? Because I like the kind of semantic argument that holiness doesn't just mean, not necessarily doesn't just mean godly. It's a word that literally means to set apart, to
Yep.
make distinct.
Yep.
And so in that sense, how do we make our resources holy? How do we get the mentality of giving what we have to God?
Mm-hmm.
And if we, and it brings up the, where exactly it is, but faithful with little, faithful with much.
Right.
Where, like, if you actively think about, you know, what your first fruits are, where they're allocated, how you use them, why you use them that way,
Right.
that's important.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. It's like a. I like the analogy that Tim Mackey uses for explaining holiness, and he says he said it's like for the set apart, it's different. You know, different purposes for different reasons, for different meanings. He said spaces can be holy, right? And he said that's something that is not. It's not an exclusively biblical thing, although nowadays we think of it that way.
Right.
And he said, if you, you know, in the Bible, there's the thing where it says, take off your sandals, you know, you're in a holy space. And he said, that seems like a weird thing, or like a very religious whatever thing. Thanks for the follow, Super Commando.
I think that's where you're kind of going. It's the idea of, like, taking off your shoes in the living room.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was he was saying in bed. He said, like, if you have muddy feet and then you go into bed, like, okay, it's weird. Like, this is a holy space. Like, you're not supposed to, you know, like, come on, dude. Like, that's strange. It's weird. It's not the purpose for what that was made for, and you need to treat it as such. And the same thing he was saying for why don't we eat meals in the bathroom? You know? And he said, you know, it's even more weird is we brush our teeth in the bathroom.
Right.
And he's like, wait, why would you leave your toothbrush in the bathroom? He's like, you should do it in the kitchen. That would make way more sense. Like, you put it in your mouth. But if you put it in your mouth, why? And you're like, well, that's normal. Then why is it not normal for you to put a spoon in your mouth and eat? You know, in the bathroom. It's like it's just wrong. It's not what it's made for, and it's whatever. And so he was saying that's the same. Like that's what holy is it's a non it's not it's set apart, for a purpose, a specific purpose, and that's not the purpose of the bathroom. Is not to eat your meals. So same thing for God. But yeah, when we're saying set apart and holy in terms of our resources or our finances or whatever, yeah, we set apart a set amount. And I say 10% because in the Bible that's what they mentioned 10%, right? But I think it's really, what does it mean to give generously? If that's 1%, if that is something that you can actually look at and go, 1% would be really hard for me right now. Like that would be a generous amount. Then okay, like 1%, and see how God works with that. But yeah, I think that idea of generosity and that I have always given some to a church, a physical location or whatever. But I also have stuff that's set aside for being generous outside of that. That's giving, something additional than that. And that for me, I think is important. Being generous with God loves a cheerful giver, somebody who sees it not as just a set number, but they're glad to give what little God has given them, and I personally can attest that it's not like, wow, I'm like overflowing with money because like I've been generous with my money, or anything like that. But God has always provided for me, even when it really didn't look like I was gonna make it, and I've had plenty of times like that. And just recently was a time like that where I'm like, oh shoot, I'm moving and I don't have a job and blah blah. And then I got this place and I can be in it's in my parents' basement or my dad's basement. It's not the best situation or whatever, but it is such a nice place. Like this is like big room, and so I feel very blessed to have this location. And then people have been giving me freelance work, like things kept coming through when I wasn't even expecting it. And so yeah, there's something to it. And so I don't remember what line we started down that we got to where we were, other than first fruits. That's right.
And so to kind of keep going to finish up that discussion,
Sure.
If your first fruits are holy, if you are intentional in setting aside the time, the space, the money, whatever it is, and you have that committed purpose behind it, that reason for it, then everything you have, God's gonna have a use for. Not that he doesn't already, but it's basically like, all right, if you're willing to trust me, if you're willing to trust God with XYZ, then he will take that, he will use that, and then he'll use more. Like he will, without you even having to give anything, take everything else and say, all right, you gave me this, I'm going to use not only that, but I'm going to use all of this too. I'm going to show you things that you didn't know you had, that you didn't know were useful, and I'm going to make them useful. And I can honestly say I've seen that in my own life, where there are so many things I was like, oh, I don't really have resources, I don't really have time or money or anything like that.
Sure.
But because I had kind of that willingness to say like, all right, what I do have, I'm gonna give.
Right.
And
Go
I
me.
was able to
Yeah.
through that learn like, oh wow, no, there actually are a lot of things that I have, and they're not what I thought they were,
Right.
but they are there, and they can be useful.
Right.
And it's basically saying like, if you have your heart in the right place, you know, the resources don't matter.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's God, so
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like most of this is we're slow cooking an owl right now. Most of this is like to our benefit, right? If it's like if we think that God needs anything from us, you know, I would much rather be on the side of like, all right, I'll give you 10% of what I have if you give me 10% of what you have. You know, like I would much rather be in that mindset where like I'm trusting God with the little that I've given, or the little that that I have, that is with the understanding that first of all, it's not even mine to begin with. Like,
Yeah.
it's not. That's like a total false sense if I believe that, where I think that you know, God isn't the one that it's giving me everything anyway. But even more than that is like, if I feel like I'm telling God, no, sorry, you can't have this 10%. You can't have this 10%. You can't have this little bit that I'm willing to give or whatever. And I'm not, you know, 10% is whatever. It's just a number that's in the Bible. If I'm not willing to be generous with the little that God's given me, then what is that saying about the rest of it? You know, like, am I saying that, oh, when I have a lot, then I'll be generous? You know, and what's a lot? You know, because we have electricity, and so we already have a lot more than a lot of other people. You know, like, we have internet. You know, and I complain about my internet speeds being that I can only have 600. I have a data limit on my internet. You know, I only have 600 gigs of data, you know, a month. And I'm like, well, that sucks. And then this, like, how am I going to live stream, you know, because I'm going to have to pay more to get more data and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, seriously? Because that's like way more than most countries would be thrilled to have, you know. 100 gigs a month would be insane, you know, or whatever. So yeah, some of that is just we're never satisfied. You know, we would say, well, when I get to this amount, then I'll be generous because I'll have so much, you know. After I make $1 million in the stock market, then I can, you know. And it's like,
Then you come across, you know, it's not really generous. Like,
yeah, right.
it's not generous to be like, oh yeah, you know, I don't have any use or need for this anymore, so
Place
here, you
again.
can have it. Like,
Right.
That's not generosity, that's a yard sale.
Right. And it's also probably not gonna work. Like, we probably won't ever actually do it. We probably won't even actually feel that way. Because if I know anything from, you know, watching America, that's a little known. If I know anything from living in America, it's like you are never actually satisfied. Like,
Yeah.
the second that you set a limit, then okay, I did not set this up very well. Then the second you set a limit and you're like, yeah, after this point, then there will be another point like right around the corner. It's so I don't even think it's necessarily a bad thing. You know, like it's a, most of the bad things are good things turned bad, right?
Your tunnel's not lined up.
Yeah, that's what I'm noticing.
I just died.
Yeah. It's a good thing turned bad, right? It is good to never be to not settle, I guess, or whatever, to not what's the word for that? Oh yeah, I see where I messed it up.
People-
It's a good thing to always want to push to the next thing, right? It's a good thing to not be like, I'm good with the money that I have, right? We read there's the story of talents, which are just a form of money, a bag of gold, and that it's like, don't just take the bag of gold, but actually do something with it. Go and make more money, and like that's a good thing to do. But when you're well, that's actually a great example. The story of the talents, right? That there's a guy who has a lot of money, and so he basically gives it off to other people and says, hey, take this money and go use it. Go use it wisely. Go use the money wisely. And he goes away for a long period of time, and when he comes back, one guy turned the bag of gold that he had into 2 bags of gold, and the other guy turned 3 bags of gold into 6 bags of gold, and the other guy, whatever. But the guy that had 1 bag of gold, he didn't turn it into 2 bags of gold. He went and buried it, and then he dug it up, and he said, well, I knew that you were, a hard man, and that you reap where you don't sow, and so I went ahead and I buried the gold because I didn't want to lose it. And he's like, that's wicked. That's dumb. Don't do that. You could have at least put it in the bank. I could have got interest. And so that the parallel between those is what if he went and buried it? What if he did go and actually make 1 bag of gold into 2 bags of gold? But then whenever he comes back and says like, okay, I've returned, like, how did you do with the money that I gave you? And he's like, wait, money that you gave me, this is my money. Wait, what? No, you didn't. I mean, yeah, you gave it to me, but you didn't do anything with it. And so it's oh yeah, right there. Yep. If you could just expand that to the left a little bit, that'd be great. So that's kind of how it feels when we if we're telling God like, no, I'm not willing to give you any of this. It's like, wait, whose money was it in the first place? And he's, yeah, I don't know. It's just like, to me, that's how I think about it, and that's why it's not. There are obviously churches and people and whatever that they sit. They are on televangelists or whatever, and they're like, give us money and we'll give you a ticket into heaven, or whatever the heck they say. That's not biblical. That's not how this thing works. And there's also nowhere in the Bible that says if you give money to a church, life is going to be very great for you and you're never going to get sick, and it's that's not a thing. It doesn't say that anywhere. And I know that's not true because it hasn't happened to me. Like it's just not it's not how that works. But there is the reverse side of that is people look at that and they see that that's how people think, and so they say, well, then I'm never going to give God any of my money. And it's like, you're not being generous with the money that God's given you. And so whatever, if you don't want to give it to a church because you don't trust a church, okay, fine, like totally good. But then you still need to take maybe take a second bank account. Make a second bank account, make a separate section in your budget or whatever that's literally like generous with this money, and then find somebody that you can be generous with that money to, give it to them. Because otherwise, if you're being selfish with the money that you feel like is your money, then God may stop providing it. And then you'll really know that it's not your money, it's God's money, and you'll have to figure out how to ask God for more of it. because whatever, like I have just noticed that when I was generous with money, even with I can only speak from personal experience, I guess, in this case, and from what I'm reading in the Bible, but I have always given 10%, even when it even when I really didn't have money at all. Like, I remember the first church I worked at. What's up, Dake? The first church I worked at, I didn't have enough money to work, to drive. I didn't have enough money to have car insurance. Like, I had a car and I couldn't drive it. I didn't have car insurance. So I had to get somebody to like take me to work every day. But even then, you know, even then I was like generous with my money. So yeah, I think there's something, God does something with generosity, you know, when you're generous with the money that you have. Yep, not how much you give, but how you give it. Yeah, absolutely. Giving $2 because you have to is different than $2 because you want to. Yeah, absolutely. That's right, generosity. Yeah, you can't be forced into being generous. That's a heart thing. That's not a amount thing. You know, there are people who have lots and lots and lots of money, and for them dropping $1 million on something maybe isn't generous. It's just like, yeah, get out of my hair. I don't, you know, whatever. And though to us it's like a crazy amount, generosity specifically speaking to the heart, right? So yep.
Where was it a parable, or did it actually happen with the widow who gave like 2 silver coins to the temple?
Yeah.
That was what actual story.
Yeah, actual
Okay.
happened
What I was
because he's
thinking,
watching.
but
Yeah, he's watching
Yeah.
it happen.
and basically says the same thing as like, listen, y'all don't think this is a lot, but like
Yeah.
think about how little she actually has.
Right.
This is way
2
more
pence.
like heart than what y'all do.
Right, and that's right, exactly. He's speaking to the heart of what you gave, and not to the amount. So that's why I think you know, it's easy to say 10% just because, you know, it scales. I think in general 10% is an amount that we would look at and go like, no matter how much you have, like that's a decent amount. But
Kind of like, honestly,
yeah.
more like a bare minimum.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what the word for tithe. You know, that's what that generally was. And then giving is
Yeah.
something separate. So that's more what I'm talking about. It's like, what does it mean to give generously? Yeah. I don't know. But that's not even the main point of what we were reading. It's just kind of an off track, which isn't bad, but you know, it is an off track. So, what Romans? What the rest do? Let's keep going. Where do we leave off?
We were just kind of harping on verse 16 for a bit.
Riffin.
Yeah, kind of just like, all right, what's the real
Yeah.
deal?
Yeah. Let's keep. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, again, it's just sort of overall intention. Like, if you use a little bit for good,
Mm-hmm.
if you're generous with a little bit, then you know, you find yourself kind of with the capability to be generous with more.
Sure. Yeah, I felt that, but at the same time, you know, it's kind of like, well, what do you want God to do? Like,
yeah,
I mean, if you believe that God is gonna take care of you or whatever, and He tells you to be generous, do you want God to be generous?
right.
You know, like, do you like what does that even mean? I don't even know. I don't even know what it means for God to be generous. It's sort of like, but just because it's an easy example, right? God holds all the cards. Like, money, when we think of somebody that's very, very rich, we say money doesn't matter to him, right? Like, he can just, you're like, dang, money doesn't matter at all to this guy. He can just drop 10K and it doesn't mean anything to this guy. That's crazy. we're speaking about his generosity, right? Like we're saying, man, if that guy gave 10K, it wouldn't even mean as much as the person that gave, 1K who doesn't have anything, or $2 who doesn't have anything. And so if that's the case, that's how we're thinking, right? What would it look like for God to be generous?
Right.
Like, like we said, it's not an amount. It's not an amount. But literally, like we're joking when we say money doesn't matter to him. Obviously, there's a point at which the money does matter. Like 1 million out of his bank, he's probably gonna like do some work to be like, well, where did that money go? If we're talking about God being generous, literally the money doesn't matter. Like he can make it, he could just make it happen, or whatever. And it may not even be money. It may be, the actual just general resources. And that's why I think about like when I say be generous with the stuff that God's given you. It's like, well, yeah. I mean, for one, just because I believe God gave it all to me in the first place, but also because I want Him to give me more. And like, if I have the ability to, if I have the ability to be generous, and I want God to be generous, then we see multiple times where God is generous with people that are generous. That the example, even specifically about money, of the talents, he gives to one person a whole bunch of money, and then he gives the other ones, and it's like he says like, great job, apparently the parable's like, yeah, he not only is it his money to begin with, but he gives it to these people based on what they can handle, and then they get to keep the profits. It's like, this guy's insane. Like, this worker is nutty. His business practices are really strange. So I would have been like, wow, you did a really good job. So like, I guess you get to keep some of it, and I'll keep some of it, and we'll keep on seeing how you do, and maybe if you keep doing well, then in the future it's like, nah, you keep all of it. And yeah, it's a big strange. Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's move off 16. Something about dough and roots and whatever. Although I do really like what the message said about the root. That
You aren't feeding the root.
you're not feeding the root. The root's feeding you. Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Finances or otherwise, right? It's like your 10% isn't like sustaining God and His mission.
Yeah.
Like His mission's gonna do it regardless. He's feeding you. He's doing this for a purpose. So trust that. Mark said he had to go to sleep. Said, good night. Family, forgive me. Old bones. Can't stay up late anymore. God bless. Continue. God continues to love us no matter how terrible we are. Generosity at its finest. Amen. So true. Yeah, absolutely. So, let's read from 17.
Finish making some lead bars real quick, and then I can pull it up. Lead. Oh, now so much.
Cool time. What's up, Wicked Bat? Wicked Bat, how you feel about Mixer disappearing?
Ooh, yeah. Big oof.
Yeah. Yeah. Alright, go ahead. Read us in. 17.
Verse 17. I'm probably gonna go through 24, it looks like.
Yeah, go as far as you want.
But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, although a wild olive shoot, were grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant toward the branches. If you are, remember it is not you who support the root, but the root that supports you. Then you will say, branches were broken off so that I might be grafted in. That is true. They were broken off because of their unbelief, but you stand fast through faith. So do not become proud, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, neither will he spare you. Note then the kindness and the severity of God. Severity towards those who have fallen, but God's kindness to you, provided you continue in his kindness. Otherwise you too will be cut off. And even they, if they do not continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in, for God has the power to graft them in again. For if you were cut from what is by nature a wild olive tree, and grafted, contrary to nature, into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these, the natural branches, be grafted back into their own olive tree? That's a fun analogy.
Yeah. Again, man,
Pruning,
Paul says
grafting.
speaks in circles sometimes.
A little bit.
Grafted.
But I appreciate how, so far, Romans 11 to me is basically just saying the same things, kind of circular, but ultimately, it's a very clarifying process where, like, kind of like why we read things from ESV and Message, where
Right.
one way tells you some things, tells you a decent amount of things, and you're like, okay, what does this really mean? To go back to Lutheran for a minute, my upbringing, what does this mean? That was like a question that we always had in confirmation classes. What does this mean? And that's a good question. Like, there are times where you look at something and you think, okay, I think I get it, I guess.
Yeah.
But to then have it broken down in more detail to say, okay, it means this, but also here's another way of looking at it. Here's another way of understanding it. The more distinct ways you can say the same thing, get the exact same message and value across, the easier it is not only for yourself to understand, but to then explain it to others who may not have the same context or may not understand the same, vocabulary. Like,
Sure.
it's almost, de-churchifying it,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Where, you read something that you look at and you think, okay, that's cool and all, but what on earth is it talking about when it says sanctified? Like,
Right. Yeah, it's a very
You know.
churchy word, yeah.
and you're like, well, what does that mean? And it doesn't make any sense. But you hear Paul's kind of dealing with that and saying, like, all right, how do I explain the concept of, salvation by grace through faith, the concept of, generosity and how do you get these points across? These very difficult, churchy, terms and ideas and concepts. How do you get them across in a way that's understandable to everyone, that's accessible to everyone? Because ultimately, that's the point, is that it is accessible to everyone. That everyone has the same opportunity to connect to God and to have that relationship, to have that salvation, and to be connected to that root. And so I appreciate that he says it once straight. He's just like, all right, here's how it is. Here's the whole setup. But then also, here's how to say it in a way that makes more sense. that's more intuitive, more, I guess, organic. Which I think is really, really, really useful. Because I know a lot of times there are things where I'll read something and think, okay, I think I get that.
That's
Thank you. Yeah, so there are times where I'll read something and say, okay, I think I get that, but then I'll go back over it a few more times, and then try and put it into my own words, and okay, no, now it makes sense.
right. Yeah, I usually don't get it till, people said like you don't understand something until you can teach it, or something like that.
Right. And so I appreciate that Paul recognizes that and says, all right, people understand things in different ways. So I'm going to say the same thing in as many different ways as I can. And I really, really appreciate the branches and the pruning and grafting and all of that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not, a farmer or gardener or whatever, but I do have a deep fondness for growing things and for nature, and I do spend a decent bit of time kind of reading about, looking at the different ideas behind that and how things are done. And so seeing that specific what's the word I'm looking for? That specific analogy
Yeah.
just makes me like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because these are things that I've looked at, that I'm familiar with. I don't know anything about baking bread. It's like when it's talking about like dough and lumps and stuff, I'm like, I guess I get it. Like, you make bread, and if you take a part of that bread, like, I guess. But I was like, all right. So when you prune something, when you graft something, oh, okay, yeah, I got you.
Right. Yeah, and Paul does a good job of that, where he's like always,
So good at it. He really
like,
exemplifies,
he
like,
knows
the ultimate
his-
all people.
yeah, he knows the different audiences he's speaking to, and makes it applicable to lots of different people. Which is, that's the goal. Is it's the same message, it's just said a little different. How do we today, same way? How do we do that? How do we say the same message to people? A little different. What am I missing? Okay. Anything else in that section? That piece?
When I appreciate, having come, like when we were talking earlier about, what's the word I'm looking for?
I'll be right back. I just need to let the dogs out.
Yeah. Who let the dogs out?
But earlier when we were talking about I completely lost my train of thought.
Earlier we were talking about something.
Oh, right. Like having grown up in the church and how that kind of places or has the opportunity to place us in that Israelite mindset of like, oh yeah, we're in, we got it, and missing the point, missing the relationship dynamic, the kind of complacency of acceptance, where you're like, oh, I'm the chosen people. I'm saved. Like I got it made. I'm done. I can whatever.
Yeah.
I appreciate how, again, looping back on himself, he addresses that and says, like, all right, if you aren't, feeding off of the road, if you aren't acting in accordance to what you know, if you're what's the word I'm looking for?
Yeah, Dake. I do.
Yeah, I'm just gonna read over verse 22 again, or 21 and 22, because Paul can say it better than I can. For if God did not spare the natural branches, neither will he spare you. Note then the kindness and severity of God, severity towards those who have fallen, but God's kindness to you, provided you continue in his kindness. Otherwise you too will be cut off. It's like there's no cutoff point. There's no end point. Like you either you commit for life or you don't commit at all. Like this is kind of the idea that I'm taking from that. Where yeah, I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore. My
Yes.
words are not working with me
Yes,
today.
yes. Well, you're trying.
Yeah.
No, yeah, oh, you trying? Yeah, the idea that it's not really a matter of if you were at one point in time in line with God or if you're currently in line with God. It's the parable of the God sends people out to the fields, right? And some come early and some come late, but they all get paid the same amount. And the people that come early are really like, what the heck? Like, why did you give them, they didn't work nearly as long as we worked. And he kind of goes, well, I mean, that, I get to decide.
Yeah.
And I told you that that's what I would pay you, and it's what I did, and so it kind of feels similar a little bit to that, where it's like, hey, I mean, it's not a matter of do I it's not a matter of when you came into the relationship with God, but are you actually taking it seriously? Are you actually doing the work or whatever? And if not, then okay, it doesn't matter if you came early or late or whatever. Just because it's not like you're born into it. I mean, that's essentially what he's saying. Like, Israel feels like they're born into it, and he's saying, hey, I mean, God loves you, God's gonna take care of you and all that stuff, but that's not born into it. Doesn't mean anything. Sorry, that's not how this works. Basically, holy
That's a lot
crap!
of ladybugs.
It's a lot of ladybugs. Okay, wait, one second. Let me get a fly net here. Ungodly amount of ladybugs. Okay, catch them. Where do I go to even get I don't even know where to go to get a net.
Isn't it the? Nope, never mind.
One of these guys had one.
It's not her. Oh, it's the merchant. Edmund has one.
Right, this is a good use of money, right?
I don't have any money on me, so I can't buy it.
Yeah, I lost like all my
Perfect.
money from just falling. It was
Yeah, I don't know where all my money went. I don't know, it's weird. All this money. I had like 11 gold. I don't know where it all went. Weird.
Yeah.
That's not how the internet works. That's not how the internet. Okay, I don't know. Just keep you guys for a second. Weird.
Oh, wait, you're back.
Hello?
Yellow.
That's weird. Did it go? It says I'm
I
still
didn't
live. It said it didn't cut off or anything.
It looks really trippy right now.
Yeah.
Oh, is
It's
it
back.
It's slow.
I also noticed my little guy in the bottom disappeared like an hour ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I'm back.
And the
back.
king draw down.
It's still there now? Maybe? I can't tell. I can't see from here. Sorry. Also, everything says sending data, so I don't know. Maybe it's trying to.
I mean, I see
Reconnect.
Twitch up again, but
I don't know. Whatever. It just says sending data. I have.
Freaking
I don't know.
lines all through it.
Whatever. It's trying. It's doing something. Alright. Let's keep going. Let's keep going. Where are we at? Graph them on 25, is that what you did?
up through 24. Yeah, so we're on 25.
Okay, I'll read a little bit. I'll read up to 33. This is
Yeah.
Romans 11, verse 25. In the ESV. Lest you become wise in your own sight, I do not want you to be unaware of this mystery, brothers. A partial hardening has come upon Israel. Upon the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. Until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And in this way, all Israel will be saved. As it is written, the deliverer will come from Zion. He will banish ungodliness from Jacob. And this will be my covenant with them when I take away their sins. Okay, so that's a quote there, that little piece there. As regards the gospel, as regards to the gospel, I don't know. They are enemies for your sake. But as regards election, oh, I see. As regards the gospel, but as regards election, they are beloved for the sake of their forefathers. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable. All right, I'm just gonna pull this up in the message. There's just too much in here that has just nothing to do with if you have no idea what we're looking at. How are there more ladybugs again? I already caught all the other ones, and there's like 10 more of them.
Well, this
Outta
will
here.
have no short.
Ladybugs.
It's one.
Ladybugs.
I can't get it.
I need to go to the message. Romans 11 SG. Okay, let's see here. Let's read what it says in this version, in the easy to understand version. All right, here we go. I'm gonna read it this way. I want to lay all this out on the table as clearly as I can, friends. This is complicated. Oh, good. Okay, so I'm glad they put it. This is complicated. It would be easy to misinterpret what's going on and arrogantly assume that you're royalty and they're just rabble. Out on their ears for good. But that's not it at all. This hardening as part of insider Israel towards God is temporary. Its effect is to open things up to all the outsiders so that we end up with a full house. Okay, so we want to open this up for everybody. It's not just for Israel. It's just, again, Paul, we get it. You've said the same thing like a billion times, but he's saying why now. You know, the reason why is because that it was temporary that you would feel this way, not so that so that everybody, we can end up with Gentiles and Israelites, everybody, you know. The rabble, as they see it, is he saying they're not just rabble, it's everybody is involved in this, right? Okay. As it's written, a champion will stride down from the mountain of Zion. He will clean house in Jacob. And this is my commitment to my people, removal of their sins. Okay, so it's written that this thing will happen. Fair. For your point of view, as you hear and embrace the good news of the message, it looks like the Jews are God's enemies. But looking at it from the long-range perspective of God's overall purpose, they remain God's oldest friends. God's gifts and God's call are under full warranty. They never canceled. They're never rescinded. There was a long time, not so long ago. There was a time not so long ago. Sorry, a long time not so long. There was a time not so long ago when you were on your outs with God. But then the Jews slammed the door on him and things opened up for you. He's talking to the Gentiles. You know, now they are on the outs, but with the door held wide open to you, they have a way back in. In one way or another, God makes sure that we all experience what it means to be on the outside so that he can personally open the door and welcome us all back in. Have you ever come on anything quite like this? Quite extravagantly, the generosity of God, this deep, deep wisdom. It's way over our heads. We'll never figure it out. Is there anyone around who can explain God? Anyone smart enough to tell him what to do? Anyone who has done such a huge favor that God has to ask him for advice? Everything comes from him. Everything happens through him. Everything ends up in him. Always glory, always praise. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, so that's... Thank you, message. You made that nice and a little bit understandable, and yeah.
Your ladybug friends are back.
There's so
Your
many.
ladybug friends.
There's so many. What have we done? How does this happen?
Dude.
Ow! How are there so many of them? I don't understand. Oh, cardinal. Okay, so what'd that mean? I mean, what's it saying? I can try. You know, it's like,
Doing some.
eh?
Sorry, I was doing with a bunch of zombies. So.
Yeah, no problem. I saw you did get that banner, 300 banner. You know, it's like from it's a lot of the same stuff. You know, I'm just gonna be real. It's a lot of the same stuff, but it's the idea that there is that the Gentiles are on the outside, the Jews are on the inside. The Jews mess it up, and then now they're on the outside. The Gentiles have faith, even though they weren't God's chosen people, and so then the Gentiles get it good, you know, and now they're in with God. And so now the Jews are kind of like, well, that sucks. Like, why are they good with God? And it's like he's saying, well, they're not. It's not how that works. You know, they're good with God for the time because they have faith, and you can totally get back in with God. You just have to have faith. And they're like, I mean, okay, you know. So there you go. Very, very cut and dry. The part that I really enjoy is that that's how we all feel, you know, and that's how God works. God isn't treating them any differently back then as he is today. There are people that were born in a Christian home and then they leave the faith and they don't know what it means to like have a relationship with God, and they can have that. The door's open to them. They already are aware of it. They didn't grow up with it, you know. And on the reverse side, there's people that they never had a relationship with God. They didn't have parents that taught them anything. It's just like, I don't know, maybe God exists, maybe he doesn't. But they have the same opportunities, and they know what it's like to be on the outside, not having that faith, and they can have that faith. They just have to go forward into it, you know? And God doesn't treat anybody differently in that. But we all experience what it's like to be on the outside of that. And I think that's good. We when I say on the outside, we all know what it's like to be, what it's like to basically to owe God. Like we know what it's like to understand that we have sinned. There isn't anybody that doesn't understand that thought. We have all experienced something that we've done in our lives that we go, well, that was not what I meant to do. Like, shoot, I didn't think that was a good thing that I just did. That for me is like being on the outside. Like we all know that we've sinned. Like when I talk to my friends who are not Christians, even they know that it's like, maybe they don't want to put the word sin on it, right? But they still the feeling of like, I know that I do things that I shouldn't do. It's not like that's a surprise to me when I read that. Like I've been on the outside of not being right with God. I know that. So how do I get right with God, you know? And that's the part that he treats everybody the same, you know? We have all done bad things, and so God makes a way for us to get right with him, you know? So that's the end part there. You know, is there anyone who can explain God? Like, no, I can't. I can read a little bit about him and like throw something out there and be like, hey, here's what I understand about God. I can't explain him. You know, is there anybody smart enough to tell him what to do? No. No. I don't think that needs an explanation. I'm not smart enough to explain or to tell God what to do. Is there anyone who has done such a huge favor that God has to ask for his advice? Like, no, I can't say that I've done anything that is worthy of God asking me for advice. Everything comes from him. Everything comes from God, right? Everything happens through him. Everything ends in him. Always glory, always praise. Yes. So that if I feel like I have done something that makes me therefore worthy of God putting me on the inside, you know, like we're saying that there's some people that are on the inside with God, you know, they have a good relationship with God. It's not something I earn, right? I'm given it, and it's completely unearned that God would allow me to have a relationship with him. So, yeah. Yep, it's good. Any other thoughts on the last piece, that last part of Romans 11? Thoughts in general?
Not really.
Okay, then in that case, what is something that we can how can we make this applicable? What we read, how can we apply this to our lives this week? Because we don't just want it to be, you know, especially because it's talking about Israel and Gentiles. It's really easy, I think, to look at it and just be like, you know, okay, yeah, that's them, and like, wow, good knowledge, thanks. But knowledge. How can we make it applicable to our lives?
You just threw owls at me.
Mhm. I will see you later.
For myself, at least, what I really take away from this is kind of a call to action of like, all right, am I doing that? You know, which one of these am I? And kind of taking a moment to critically examine, like, am I being faithful and generous? Or am I kind of resting on my supposed laurels and thinking, all right, I'm in, I got it. And depending on the answer to that, how do I respond? Like, if I'm not in the right,
Mm-hmm.
what do I have to do? What should I do to change that? You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, where are you at in that? Like how do we make that, yeah, I mean, I believe that too, but you know, is there something that I need to do about that? You know, like what does that actually look like?
Yeah. I just realized that holding shift lets you automatically place torches.
Hmm.
You don't have to keep switching to torch.
True.
Or maybe it's just shift goes to 0, which is where I have torches.
Shift is a smart key, so like it'll go to whatever it thinks you want to push next. So if you like hover over something you need to break, it'll bring out your pickaxe. If you hover over something that's light, it tries to guess what it thinks you want to pull out.
Also totally unrelated. But yeah. So thinking about that though, and kind of how do we practically approach that? I'm actually trying to remember exactly how you phrased that question.
I mean, just in general, like, what are we gonna do about it? Like, what does it mean for our week? You know, if we're
Well, so this is something that I've actually kind of been working on already, kind of separate from this. But for myself, at least, really focusing on trying to figure out like my time resource. Like, how do I spend my time, and how can I spend it better? You know, more wisely, more godly. And some of that is just sort of cutting out things, activities, time commitments that don't serve any real value, present or eternal.
right.
Because there are some things where it's like, does this really have, you know, eternal weight? Maybe not, but at present it's, you know, very good. So like some of my Pathfinder groups, for example,
Right.
it's like, is this, you know, saving souls or like teaching me valuable spiritual lessons or like giving me ministry tools? No. But it's keeping me sane.
Right.
It's giving me something to look forward to and to spend my time on, and you know, to enjoy life through it. Like,
Yeah. there's community and so on. Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, there. You know, that's something that I want to keep doing. But then I look at something like Facebook where I'm like, everything that I use this for can be done better elsewhere.
Right.
And this actually does like worse for me.
Yeah, it's like actively hindrance. Or
Right. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, all right, I guess I'm cutting that out.
Sure.
Like, are there things I enjoy about it? Absolutely.
Right.
And do I feel that it's like inherently bad? Absolutely not.
Right.
There's a lot of value to it, but for me, for now, I can't use it.
Yeah.
It's a hindrance.
Yeah. Totally fair.
And so that's just one specific example of my outlook on time as a resource.
Yeah.
But those are the sorts of things that I think we should be kind of looking at, thinking about.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good applicable. Like, yeah, and then for me, just like going off of what you said, for me, it's like continuing to look at my week and say, how am I using everything for the glory of God?
Right.
You know, like if I'm, yeah, I felt the same way about video games at one point, kind of like what you were saying, where I was like, oh shoot, you know, is this thing actually, is it good for me or not? And at the end of the day, I do have to kind of look at stuff and say, can I do this for the glory of God or not? And if not, then why not? And there are some stuff that I will look at and say, I am doing this specifically for rest.
Mhm.
Like I'm doing this because it is resting for me to do it, and that's biblical. Like, it's biblical to have a day of rest, you know? And so yeah, it's not like it needs any real purpose outside of just, it's relaxing. Like sitting out on a hammock is like, it's just relaxing. I don't like need any real reason outside of that. So I would, you know, there's that kind of a thing. But for something that then I have to compare those things, right? Like it's one thing to have a day of rest. It's another thing to just be lazy, you know, to just not do
Right.
anything ever. And so how am I, that's where you get into the too much of a good thing, or not enough of a good thing. And so I think, you know, what it sounds like you're saying is kind of like balancing, you know, almost of okay, it's not that I don't want to have relationships with people, I just want to do it in person. And you know, if I'm doing too much of the social media, then it's maybe not cutting out all social media, but I'm going to cut out the stuff that is actively hindering my other actual relationships. So yeah, I think that's good. It's a good way to think about it. Yeah, same I guess would be for me the application is like continuing to, as I'm setting up my schedule, now that I've moved, as I'm looking at the things that I'm doing, are the things that I'm doing, am I doing them for the glory of God, and am I putting them in the right order, in order of importance? You know, some of the stuff we talked about early on before even we started the stream, where it was like, these are really good things, they're not the most important things. Like, let's put the important things first, and then we'll worry about the other things, because they are important, they're just not the most important, you know? Yeah. Good stuff. Jonah, how about you? Anything for
I think it's mostly just the using what I've been given for the glory of God, and just like entrusting that God will use me in that way as well. Like not just the fact that of actively trying to find it, but also trusting that God will use me in what He's given me.
right? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, like we read earlier, that he'll take the little that you feel like you can give, and he'll multiply it. You'll see new new things you don't even notice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you have that mindset that you want to, then you start to find new things that, new ways that you can. It doesn't mean you have to, but it allows those. Yeah. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's pray. Before we pray, I mean, obviously, like, let's go ahead and find the stuff that we want to be praying about. Some of the stuff we probably already prayed about, but if anybody in chat is here listening to us right now, and you want prayer, feel free to post it. I've got the chat up, so I'll see whatever it is, and we'll pray for you. For you guys, what can we be praying for?
Really, like, sort of focus and wisdom on sort of sorting through what we were just talking about, of, you know, figuring out, you know, what are my priorities, and, you know, are they, I guess, right, you know?
Right.
Do I have my life, you know, figured out correctly, or are there things that I need to change right now? I mean, obviously we always have something that needs to change, but
Right.
am I on a good path right now, or do I need to make course adjustments?
Right. Is this God's path or my path? Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, especially some of the stuff with, like, my writing, where I really feel that it's important that I be working on it, but to what degree, you know, what priority status do I give
Sure.
that? And, yeah. So, I guess, yeah, just figuring out exactly how I should be moving forward, and what I should be dedicating my time to, and how much of that time I dedicate.
Right.
Because that's the thing, is even when you figure it out, you know, like you were saying with rest versus laziness, you know, what's the moderation level? Like, at what point do you say, okay, this is a good thing gone bad?
Right.
So sorting that out, I feel I need help with.
Hmm.
I'm about to die. Oh. Yeah, I died.
Couldn't find the antidote.
Couldn't find the antidote. Got poisoned. This is what I get for going to the jungle with like, crappy armor.
I don't have armor.
At least I have good weapon armor. Good weapon now.
Yeah, there you go. I do have a decent weapon.
Yeah, I have the ruby staff. It's super fun. Shoots fire. So yeah, actually let me pull up community so I can actually type this in, but really that is the big one, is just finding the course of how I should be directing my life at the moment.
Right.
And honestly, I think most specifically for a clear course, clear direction on moving forward with my writing. You know, I'm at a point where I'm looking at it and thinking, you know, I need to start, you know, kind of promoting this, taking it seriously, and sort of looking at addressing, like, all right, you know, if I want this to be published, if I want this to be read,
Right.
I need to be working on it more diligently. I need to be
Yep.
stuff like that, and I'm figuring out, you know, like a Discord for it, since I'm kind of getting rid of Facebook as kind of the announcement platform, like, hey, here's all the stuff I'm working on and not actually finishing. Like, Discord's a much
Right.
more personal platform, I feel.
Yeah.
Which it's so backwards to say that, because like the idea of Facebook is supposed to be like, hey, here's your friends and family all in one place.
Yeah.
Like,
Facebook's
supposed to
kind
be.
of broke the system though, because no one sees half the stuff you post anymore.
right.
Yeah.
Where
Where,
Discord, everyone
where
sees it.
Discord's like, it is
Yeah,
a
it's a
timeline. It's
problem.
like, here's
Yeah.
your chronological exact list of when people posted what.
Mhm.
Right.
So there's that.
It's
Trying
an
to figure
algorithm
that
for
out.
sure.
And thinking long term about stuff like Patreon, thinking about how I want to publish, like where I want to publish. Like I know I'm doing self-publishing just because I don't want to fiddle around with other people getting their hands on my book. Like I'll hire editors and stuff, sure, but you don't get to tell me what I put on the cover. Like that's my job.
Is that your cat's chair, Jade?
Yeah.
Oh. So yeah,
Sleeping.
I guess just clarity with my writing moving forward and wisdom on knowing where my priorities should be and the self-discipline, the self-control to actually follow through on that. So that's
Yeah.
something that I've been working with recently, is trying to get better control over myself. I know that's not something that I can necessarily do solo, but grace of God. I think it's
Yep.
doable.
Totally. Gotcha. Jonah?
I don't know. I think other than job stuff, it would be nice to actually find a community that's a little more physical and permanent.
Yeah.
Because like you're a digital community, but I'm a very like one of my primary love languages is touch.
Right.
And all the time. So that that physical contact and connection with people is
Yeah.
important too.
Yeah,
Like,
VR
right
isn't
now I
quite that good yet.
Yeah. Quarantine's probably been rough.
Yeah. Yeah, VR might trick the brain into thinking, oh, they're here.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah, I need to. Got to get
I
the
need
like
one.
haptic suits or whatever before we can physically hug. Yeah, in VR.
That'd be so weird.
Someday. Someday.
I can, but you're not here.
Someday. Bet. It's not gonna be that long.
Get the Ready Player One suit.
Yeah. I bet it won't be that long. They already have stuff that's similar to that.
Mhm.
All right, I'm about to shut the server down. If you want to like, let me know when you guys are at an okay spot.
I mean, I'm in like a safe spot. So.
Good? We good?
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Me as well.
Okay. Last chance. Anybody in chat? If you guys have something we can be praying about. I don't know who all. They won't tell me who all is in chat, but if you're in chat and you have something that you want prayer for, we're about to pray. For me, let's see. For me personally, mostly live stream stuff. Like, what does it look like? Kind of for the same reasons that we're talking about. You know, using stuff for the glory of God. What does that look like? Just Love Clan as a church. You know, moving forward, like trying to figure out what that looks like. So, prayer for that, and then prayer for trusting God with things like finances, time, all the things we mentioned. Yeah, it's sort of the, you know, I believe, help my unbelief. It's sort of that feeling where it's like I have no disbeliefs that God is who He is. Like we've already mentioned, though, just believing that God is different than faith. And so do I trust that God is going to take what little I give him and do more with it. You know, if I give him my time, if I give him my money, if I trust him with those things, that he'll be able to provide for me. And those are things that it's easy to say, but then in the moment when you're like, oh crap, like I only have this much left in my bank account, you know, that it starts to get more scary. So yeah, just yep, that'd be mine. So cool. Well, if there are no prayer requests in the chat, then I will I guess somebody starts off? Maybe just go in order.
Yeah,
Are we going bottom to top or top to bottom?
I didn't even know.
Bottom, top last
Did you
week.
guys? I can't even check. Here's the thing: I can't check the community chat because that would get rid of the your guys' cameras on the stream. So,
Oh yeah, because you didn't have pop up or pop out. You were just looking at it on stream or on in channel.
yes.
English.
So, who wants to do what?
Yeah, I can start and then pray for Jonah. Jonah for Jate. Close this out.
Sure,
Over me, I guess. All right.
sounds good.
Okay. Father God, thank you for this time that we've had together and for giving us the opportunity to use this time, to use this game, this platform for your glory, to be faithful with that and to take advantage of the resources that we have to grow in your word and to come to a deeper understanding of you through this community that you've blessed us with. And for Jonah, I want to pray that, you know, this season has been very hard for in-person community. I just ask that you would bless him with the opportunity to get into one again, to start opening up those doors, to, you know, provide a safe environment for that, you know, that longing in his heart for, you know, people. And, you know, I understand that, God, and I thank you that, you know, things are moving towards that again, and for the opportunities that you have given us to see people in person as things are slowly opening up across the country. I guess you would continue to protect us during this time, and that you would allow things to continue opening and to make those final steps towards connection again. And that as this time kind of winds down and clears up, that we would take lessons from it and that we would move back into these communities with a new intentionality and a new passion for it that maybe we wouldn't have had otherwise. Yeah.
I'd just like to lift Jade up to you, that you would just give him peace of mind in what you're doing in his life, that he would be able to trust you in everything, in his time, his resources, and well, which is a resource in itself, but that you would just give him wisdom and peace and how to use that, and yeah, you would just provide for him as well.
God, pray for Zilly. I pray that you would give him, continue to speak into his life as far as what it is that you want from him, what you want him to do. how you want him to use the things that you've given him, like writing, and his ability to socialize. So God, I pray that as he is writing his book, that you will continue to be at the heart of that, and as he's trying to figure out what it looks like for him to use those things, like writing the book, to follow you, if it's a Discord or his relationships outside of Facebook and so on. I pray that you would bless those things. We thank you, God, that you know his heart. You know what he wants to do with this book, and also, God, you know the time that it takes. And so, God, I pray that you would be able to help him with time management and with how he uses his time, and that he'd be encouraged by the progress he's already made, and that he'd be able to finish it out, because we know that on the other side of finishing it, that just what an awesome accomplishment that's going to feel like, but also on top of that, just how you can use something like that even to reach people and have new relationships. And so, God, we're all in agreement that we see our time and our money as resources that are given from you, that you give us everything from wisdom to the very breath and life that we live every day. And so we want to give you a portion of that back. This is time that we have given to you. We trust you with it. We thank you for the people that came in and out of chat, people that are maybe lurking, people that were able to just get something maybe out of the conversations that we had as we're reading through the word that you breathed into this world. And so we thank you, God, for the light that you've shown on us with your word, that it is a sharp sword. It divides our spirit from our flesh. There's something extra about reading your word, God, that it's changing. It's got new meanings every day. And so we thank you that we're able to parse through it, even when it gets a little complicated. We're able to stick through it and find something in there that we can apply to our lives. And so thank you for that. And God, we glorify you and we praise you for being a good God. And we thank you. It's in your name, Jesus, that we pray. Amen. All right.
Good stuff.
That's that. Thank you, guys, for joining. And then thank you, chat, people that are, chilling. I don't know if this is a VOD or whatever, but if you're hearing this somehow after the fact, thanks for listening, for being a part of whatever this is. And I'll see you next time. All right. Peace.